Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. LouisianaSports.net has not launched yet. We are not live. We're getting there. We're making some progress, and we'll let y'all know when that does happen. But one of the things that I'm going to do as part of the content creation on the LSU side is to kind of pulled the radio station. I've called it Station Survey and sent out some questions to the production staff and the on-air talent, and just want to get some quick hitter thoughts on some questions about LSU football and LSU athletics. Really, we'll do it into basketball season and into baseball as well. And one of the questions that I thought of to ask, and we'll get everybody's thoughts on, and we'll post it on the site when we're live here at some point, talked about the most indispensable player on the team. And for the purposes of the discussion, I took Garrett Nussmeier off the table. If LSU loses Garrett Nussmeier, I believe there's a significant drop-off to the backup, whether it's Ricky Collins or A.J. Swan, and LSU's going to be in a little bit of trouble offensively if Nussmeier goes down. That doesn't make LSU unique, hardly. LSU did have a pretty good backup situation last year with Garrett Nussmeier, and we'll certainly all point to Matt Flynn being a capable backup and winning a bowl game, and we'll point to Tua and Jalen Hurts. And there are certainly instances where college football teams have quality backup quarterbacks, but in this era, they are few and far between because backup quarterbacks don't stick around very long. A lot of times they're freshmen or guys that don't think they could play potentially elsewhere. If you've got a guy that's a backup, thinks he can play, he just goes and plays somewhere else, usually. So LSU actually has the inverse of that happening where a starter came from somewhere else and is here, but I don't know that anybody's got A.J. Swan on the Maxwell Award watch list just this very second. So Garrett Nussmeier is the obvious answer to the question of who's the most indispensable player on the roster. So we took him away. Who's next? Well, I'll discuss the options, and I'll tell you who I think it is. Certainly, you would just go to, well, who's the best? Well, Will Campbell might be the best player on the team. Losing him at left tackle would be very bad. Emory Jones is a really good player. Losing him at right tackle would be bad. Harold Perkins is a dynamic athlete on the defensive side. They don't really have anybody else that plays like him. Few teams in college football do have guys that play like him. Losing him would be a bad situation, for sure. LSU is shallow at the running back position. You've really got 4 guys, and one's a true freshman, one's coming off ACL surgery. So it's not a room that you've got a ton of depth in. Kyron Lacey looks to be a pretty clear number 1. Losing him would be bad. You're not real deep at tight end. I could make an argument that Mason Taylor is the most indispensable player on this team because Kamorian Pimpton's not quite physically ready to block down in, down out, nor is Trey'Dez Green, and only having 2 scholarship tight ends available is not a great place to be. All those make a lot of sense. And I would suggest there's probably a big number of you that would take one of those. So I'll go through those and tell you why I don't believe they are the answers. If Will Campbell were to go down, you would move Emory Jones to left tackle. And that's a step down, but I think he's a capable college left tackle. If not, he's not Will Campbell, but he's capable. And then you would slide in at right tackle, Tyree Adams, who's been working as the backup left tackle. He's a redshirt freshman. He's had a good camp, and that would hurt. That would be a big step down. But I don't think would be the biggest issue, biggest question mark. At running back, yeah, it would be bad if Josh Williams or Caleb Jackson went down, but you do have 3 other guys that can do it. I don't feel great about Kamorian Pimpton stepping up there and being the every down tight end over Mason Taylor, but I think you'd live. You plug Whit Weeks in for Harold Perkins. It's not the same player, but I think Whit Weeks is an SEC caliber player. My answer for LSU's most indispensable player is a guy who hasn't even really been a starter, and he's in his 5th year. It's Jacobian Guillory. This is twofold. One, I think Jacobian Gillery has had a really good camp. In the pass rush drills, he has been a bully up there. Bull rushing guys into the backfield time in and time out, getting the better of DJ Chester, getting the better of Garrett Dellinger. Certainly when they put younger players out there that are 3-4 years his junior, he's had his way with them to an extent. He's not shown a wide variety of pass rush moves, not doing a lot of swims or spin moves, or not doing any stunts in these drills. But he can just line up and hit you. He is a strong dude at 6'2", 320 pounds. And no, he has not been a very impactful player during his time at LSU. You're talking about a guy who has made 3 starts in 4 years. He started 1 game last year. You're talking about a guy who has half of a sack and 2 tackles for loss to his name in 4 years. That is not a big impact at the defensive tackle spot. You had Mason Smith, you had Mekhi Wingo, you had Jordan Jefferson. Guillory was kind of on the back burner. And generally speaking, when you're on the back burner for 4 years in college, you're not a great player. That just you would be hard pressed to find a list of great players who had almost zero impact through 4 years of college, and then all of a sudden broke out in a 5th year. And I'm not here telling you that Jacobian Guillory is going to go out there and have 6 sacks this year and 13 tackles for loss. That would surprise me a little bit. What I do feel like I can say is that Jacobian Gillery is the best defensive tackle LSU has. I don't know who's second, but the thought of an LSU defensive tackle tandem of Jalen Lee and Gio Paez with the depth behind them of Dom McKinley and Sean Washington is a little scary to me. And you can't ask Jacobian Gillery to go out there and play 90 snaps against Ole Miss in the heat. You can't ask him to bash heads with Alabama for 75, 80 snaps. You need depth. You've got to roll some guys in there. So at times, you will have them out there. But Jacobian Guillory, to me, is clearly the best. And to be quite frank, I have more faith right now in Caleb Jackson or Kamorian Pimpton or Whit Weeks or even in Tyree Adams than I do the backup defensive tackles. JVR Suggs and Dom McKinley, like I said, and like Sean Washington. They need Guillory out there. They just do. He's not going to win the Outland Trophy. He's probably not going to be first team All-SEC, but he's the linchpin of this thing. So I just don't want to think about trying to figure it out beyond Jacobian Guillory. I've been encouraged by his camp. I really have. Unfortunately, he went out earlier this week, and it doesn't appear that it's that significant. And Brian Kelly kind of spoke to it and said, yeah, we think that he'll be back. Got that big knee brace on, and I think he'll be okay. You might disagree, but that's where I am on Jacobian Guillory. Beck, you've heard the entire rationale on basically every position that's possible. Am I nuts?
No, I don't think you're nuts. I just think at times when we have conversations like this, we can go so far into the weeds and try. But I really do. I almost agree with you just because when you say an indispensable player, your first thought will go to immediately who's the best player. But at the same time, if you look at LSU, their weakest position is probably defensive line. And you can say, okay, well, let's take away the quote-unquote best player from that position, and then you're really looking thin there. So I don't think that's a bad take. I do, however, have to say that I would go with Harold Perkins just because he is. I mean, it may seem like, oh, that's an easy answer. Well, it's an easy answer because he's really, really good.
They don't have another guy with his skill set.
No, they don't. He's the best player on the defensive side of the ball, and you're going to need him really bad on third down to try to cover up some of those mistakes that the defensive backfield may have. So if he can give you 9 or 10 sacks, and I don't think Whit Weeks is going to give you more than 3 or 4 if he's taken over Harold Perkins' position. So if he can give you a lot of sacks and cover up some of those deficiencies at defensive backfield I think Harold Perkins for me is the one that I would go with.
I'll tell you the name that we didn't mention that I wouldn't love it if he went down on the first drive against USC is Ashton Stamps. Now, I realize that I talked earlier this week about how the corners are not covering anybody, but he's the best they got. And if you're telling me a little bit of a gimpy Zy Alexander and then Sage Ryan and PJ Woodland and Jair Brown are your corners, like that's a little concerning to me. So there's no right answer here. There's no wrong answer here. I think it's a good discussion piece, which is why I'm curious to see the responses I get back from everybody at the station. But I'm going to go with Jacobian Gillery on it and hope that he can absolutely stay healthy because the Tigers are going to need his services in the middle of that defensive line. That the depth is okay there. I don't know if the depth of talent is okay there. That's something we won't figure out until they get out there on the field in Las Vegas against USC. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.